From Cornwall to Birmingham and Johnston and Bexhill, here's Ruben Spire on the radio.
Hello to Liz Arcane. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Ruben. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So can you tell me, how long have you been a singer-songwriter for?
I have been a singer-songwriter since I was 15. I think I always wrote songs, always sort of made up little melodies and was able to memorize songs really quickly. And then from about 15, I started performing them at acoustic stages in Dorset, where I grew up originally.
So what was it like going to the recording studio when you first released your debut single back in 2019?
Yeah, it's lovely, thank you. I work with a really lovely little studio, Island Farm Studios in Greater London, with James there, who is very supportive and sort of acts as a producer and gives me advice, because I do all the music writing and lyric writing myself, and some of the conceptual ideas as well, like videos. And then having a second ear on the music makes a really big difference as well. So it feels very special to sort of make something and say, this is my thing that I've made.
So are you still at that same studio?
Yes, I'm still working with them now. They are currently finishing off the final touches on my album, Honest Soul. That's going to come out quite soon. And I've just been releasing singles from that using the kind of what's called the waterfall method. I don't know if you've heard of that, Ruben, before.
No.
Phrase I only came across myself in the last 6 months. And I think the idea is that singles, especially digitally, are more popular, I suppose, and people listen to singles more regularly. So they are helping me to do that. And then soon as I get the album ready, I'm hoping for around the 1st of July, I'm going to be putting that onto Bandcamp with 2 secret songs just for people who purchase it.
Well, I think releasing singles keeps your fans intrigued.
That's true, yeah, because they don't get the whole story.
Yeah, I think I only interview one other person or another artist, and they just released their album straight. So, but I think, yeah, keeping releasing singles keeps your your fans intrigued. Yeah.
Yeah, I did actually do that the same way as you just mentioned, with one in 2022 that was the Gaslight Sessions. And it was good, but it was very much like putting the songs out there and then feeling they weren't necessarily getting heard, because I do find that people don't listen to as much from one artist these days. They more frequently go to like a playlist or an individual song. So it was good, but I didn't feel that each of the songs was getting the recognition it deserved.
So, can you tell me more about your debut single called Summer Rain?
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote that song actually just after I heard that my uncle had passed away. So it's a very sad moment. And I think you find with a lot of songwriters, they will say that they get inspiration either really slowly and gradually and they build up an idea, or suddenly they get it in like a rush. And that, I think, is what happened for me. I was thinking about my uncle, Simon, who very sadly passed away and was very close. He actually taught me guitar. And then the whole sky outside the window went completely pink and started raining. And I'm not a terribly spiritual person, but I did think for a moment, this is kind of, this is something. And then it just came out with that riff, la da 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 da, and that kind of idea of just the weather and life and death and everything sort of connecting.
So I see you got a piano behind you there. Is it piano?
Yeah.
So what other musical instruments do you play?
I would say vocals is my first love, and that's the thing I think I am the best at. I mean, I don't want to blow my own trumpet. I can't play the trumpet anyway, but saying that everyone has something they're really good at. So that's my thing I'm really good at. Piano and guitar, I play as sort of rhythm instruments just to support the singing. And what I really love as a performer, especially one with a lot of dramatic training, ideally I want to be just up there, just performing, just singing. But that's something to work towards, because it depends upon having a large enough band and a big enough sound.
Okay. So we're going to move on a couple of years now. So can you tell me more about the the single called Radio.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote that song kind of looking for a Ibiza 2000s Spanish kind of feel. I really wanted to get a feeling of sun and warmth. And the idea of the song is that you can escape from any troubles you have by listening to the radio. Radio is not that popular these days, although I do think it is having a resurgence, but it's more the idea that you can listen to music and put everything else aside for a moment.
Especially community radio stations.
Say that again, sorry.
Especially community radio stations.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I've been working with a couple lately, actually, working with a PR company called Juice, who've been amazing. And they have sent my music out to, I think one of them was Dover Community Radio, Le Monde. I don't know if I'm saying that right, in Scotland. I think I'm saying it wrong, to be honest. I'm saying it in much too fancy a way. But yes, those community radio stations, very generous with their time, very enthusiastic. And whenever I've contacted them, they sent me really personalised responses. And compared to contacting like BBC Radio and getting nothing back or getting an automatic email, it's been really refreshing, actually.
So can you tell me about your debut EP called Clementine Moon?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the one that had Summer Rain on it. So it had radio and lots of other sort of little songs, especially some the ones that I would release as singles if I was doing it again now, which have a very kind of quite a jazzy feel, but kind of on the border between jazz and soul. For instance, Incidental Blues, that kind of song, where there's a kind of feel of movement and a kind of drive to the music. But what I think is really important is I try and balance the music with the lyrics, get one clear idea of what I want to say and really get it across. And actually, that's what I did with the song Hot Blooded Woman, which I think is probably one of the favourite ones of mine that I've recorded, because I'd started out of this idea of like 70s bands like Led Zeppelin and Free, people like that. They would write a song and it would be about driving down the highway, seeing a woman and immediately going on a date with her. And it was meant to be like a parody of that from a woman's perspective, where there's all this kind of freedom for male singers, and then the other side doesn't seem to be quite as free and not quite as liberated. So it was a kind of parody of that. And it's meant to be almost a little bit camp, a little bit humorous, because it has such a big chorus and is even a little bit silly. But what I love, what actually the Island Farm Studios did to that song is they made it this great big tapestry of 1970s kind of flowing, acoustic and powerful. It sort of sounds like you're in the desert, that kind of thing. And that's the sort of sound I'm trying to embrace for everything that I release now, is that big 1970s rock and soul sound.
So can you tell me more about the Gunner's Daughter?
Yeah, absolutely. Now that is a bit of an older one. That was when we re-released. I think we recorded it around 2015, but it may even be earlier. So in a way, that was one of my first larger experiences in a recording studio. I had some experiences with different bands that I was in before that, but that was the first, that was all me. And therefore, it kind of brings out the folk songwriter sound that I actually had way back then. And I can listen to the other day and I thought I can really hear a difference in my voice. It's getting a lot more gravelly as well as I get older, which is I quite enjoy that. I like Stevie Nicks, for example. The songwriting, I feel quite like I can critique it. Many of the songs are too long. Some of them, just not as good as the ones I would write today, but I still really enjoy having it out there, especially because it had the Christmas single on it. And I have a real thing about writing a Christmas single every year. I think music from Christmas is really magical. And that is actually one of the songs I'm most proud of, Just a Holiday, because it's got lots of beautiful bell sounds and different surprising instruments. So I'm very, very proud of that one, even if it is a little a revisit to an old record.
So, can you tell me more about Treasure Trove?
Yeah, absolutely. That's another of my Christmas singles, actually. I was thinking about this kind of imagery you get at Christmas of life and death and time passing and the seasons. And I just wanted to write this almost quite romantic song, but it was about a girl being pursued by death, which sounds much more gothic than it's intended to be. but it is just meant to be very kind of storytelling. And I really, really like storytelling. I separately do a lot of writing. And in fact, I'm just having my first short story published as well, probably in the next month or so. And so I'm very much trying to sort of tell a story through each of the songs as well.
So what's your favourite genre of music to sing?
Well, probably if someone said to me, what would you do at karaoke, for example? I mean, I would always go straight to Prince or Kate Bush. So genre-wise, I mean, both of them are really quite divergent on their genres. I suppose Prince is soul, it's very sexy, it's very funky. Kate Bush is completely mad, very sort of storytelling. I mean, you can see that they're both huge influences on me. But both of them are really explosive and dramatic performers, and I really love bringing that into a show. So I think that would be my favourite genres of choice.
So can you tell me more about your second EP that is called By the Gaslight Sessions?
Yeah, absolutely. That was again working with Island Farm Studios and with some really, really amazing musicians. The idea was I wrote this song called Gaslight, which almost had a kind of, I wanted it to sound like a 90s chill out hip hop ish kind of song, more like the R&B spectrum. The idea being that it should have like the sense of a sample. And again, it's like a storytelling thing. It's a girl saying, oh, I love this man and he's amazing, but she doesn't yet realize, because maybe she's too young, too impressionable, that he is gaslighting her or mistreating her, making her believe that her friends are against her. So it's got this kind of innocent voice. And then we took that as the title of the EP. As well as that, there's a couple of darker songs like Crimson Moon, and the guitarist I play with these days, Dave Matthews, he played guitar on that and made it really quite a funky slow jam, which is a sound that I'm really trying to pursue. Sorry, I think my screen's just done something a bit odd. Let me try and fix it. Can you still hear me okay, Ruben?
Yep.
Don't know why it's just suddenly disappeared. Let me try and fix it. There we go. Apologies. Yeah, so that album was a lot of fun to record. We actually recorded it in 2019, and then 2021. I'm getting my numbers the wrong way around, which might be a case for a lot of songwriters. I think numeracy is not my strength. And then eventually we released it by 2022, and we recorded it live as well, which is why it has that live session sound. And many of the songs on there I'm really proud of, and I'm trying to give them a second life, like Mother, for example, which I obviously wrote about my mother and how she's a sort of one-off, and I don't know how she does what she can do. I don't know how she can be so patient with me, and she's so important to me as a person. I'm just so happy that she's in the world, and I feel very lucky to have her. And then releasing those on the album, putting it out on the album, it's sort of, they didn't get that recognition, which we were talking about earlier. So I've been trying to submit it to playlists. And oddly enough, I've had quite a lot of success on Facebook groups where there are a lot of people, especially Americans, who are very serious about independent music, like yourself, Ruben. A lot of people looking for things to put on playlists, looking to hear new music. So I've managed to get it on a few playlists that way. My other sort of goal this year is to try and get some music synced for like a film or for TV or something. And a lot of them have very specific requirements, like a song about mothers. So if I can find the right criteria, I think I can get that placed in a film. And that would be a real goal for me to have this year.
So can you tell me more about the first single that released this year called Sweet Correction?
Sweet Connection, actually, if I correct you, if you don't mind. Yeah, I'm really trying with this album. Well, the reason I'm calling it Honest Soul is because I want to be really honest. I think a lot of being a musician, being a songwriter is about putting on a face, putting on a facade, pretending to be something that you're not. And for me, Sweet Connection is about trying to go back to the things that I'm maybe ashamed of in my life, or the things I'm struggling to get over, and just put it down into a song. And thinking about maybe a time when I was very, very young, probably very badly behaved, and I would be looking for connections with people, or looking for love in the wrong places, really. So that is a kind of cry out to my past self, like a lesson I'm trying to teach myself about thinking more about reality and less about things that seem positive but are not.
So, can you tell me more about your latest single called Slow Down?
Yeah, absolutely. That is another really honest one. That is really the theme that I'm going for with this album. And it's sort of about saying how sometimes we think we fall out of love with the person who is our special person, our best friend, our true love. And actually, we start to get a bit of distance. And often in like long-term relationships, I think it kind of goes up and down. You can be really close, really secure. Then maybe someone works too much or some sort of issue happens and you're not communicating the way you should. And the idea for slow down is to just, rather than think, well, that's it, it's over, or to panic, just to slow down and notice something small that is positive and just kind of put everything into that. And you'll find that everything gradually comes back to what it was.
So, are you going to be releasing any new singles in the near future?
Yeah, so we've got 2 more songs coming out. I'm saying we because Island Farm Studios are so involved in helping me with this. One song called Easy Love is about how the best love is the most straightforward, simple. There's no games, there's no messing about. That one I think is going to come out probably early June, maybe mid-June at the latest, as I'm being a bit of a perfectionist and I've just sent it back to Sam, who's doing the mastering, with some amendments. So that should be out early June. And as well as that, I've got one coming out afterwards called Play with Fire, which I think will be around mid or late June. And I'm very, very proud of that song. It's meant to be similar to that song Hot Blooded Woman that I mentioned. It's sort of a parody of the idea of noticing women in the street and this kind of male figure that you get in a lot of 70s rock, where they say, oh, I saw her in the street, she was so gorgeous, and so on. And then kind of turning it around and saying, because the fact is, Ruben, there is so much female domestic violence. And of course, it's not all men, but generally speaking, it mostly is men treating women badly. The song is about saying, don't underestimate the person that you think you can take advantage of. So it has, in a way, I wouldn't say it's political, but it is trying to share an important message about don't play with fire, because we shouldn't underestimate women and you shouldn't underestimate anybody, I suppose. I don't really know who that message is for. I fully expect it to be a little bit controversial when it comes out as well. But having seen the figures last year, I think the White Ribbon charity released them. It was really quite shocking to see the percentages and the statistics. And I'm also somewhat thinking of releasing it in aid of charity, as I did something similar in December with a song called Don't Go that I made £250 for Samaritans. I aimed for 100, so I was really, really pleased with that. And I'm wondering if maybe I should do the same thing, but for a different charity with this one, because it's quite hard being an independent songwriter. Often you don't really make any money and you do it for the love of it. So if I was going to make some money, I think I'd rather it went to a good cause anyway.
So, can you tell me more about your debut album that you're going to release very soon?
Yes, Honest Soul, that's going to come out really soon. I'm putting it on platforms, but I also think that some of the platforms like Spotify, with its very low payments for artists, as we all know, and other similar ones, they're not always accessible for people. They're not always the best option. So as well as putting it on platforms, I'm going to release it on Bandcamp as well. And I'm going to include 2 secret tracks in that version of it. The idea being that it's a sort of reward and a thank you to people who go straight to the artist. As well as that, I think I'm going to try and bring it all together with some beautiful artwork from Ben Williams, who helps me with all of my artwork, and try and give it a kind of powerful finish that I'm hoping to then put onto CDs, maybe vinyl, depending on the cost, and maybe t-shirts. I just have to get Ben to agree to it. But I'm very much hoping that I'll be able to sell some merchandise, as I have some gigs coming up in July and August over the summer. And I really want to sort of meet people and get better at networking, get better at meeting the fan base and building that fan base. And I think merchandise is a really good way of doing that.
So, can you tell me, what's it like for you being an independent artist?
I would say it is sometimes very difficult, mostly very rewarding, and it's something that I enjoy. I think if there's ever any kind of creative thing that anyone enjoys and they find they always go back to it no matter what else they do, then it's a calling of sorts, even though that's a bit over the top to say. But, you know, we're all creative animals. We all want to produce something, just like you do with your interview show as well, Ruben. So it's a kind of thing where even if I'm having a bad week, I will still come back to it, and I'll still probably make up a song while I'm doing the washing up. So I think it's more about thinking about when you need to take breaks and that kind of thing. And I have lately been thinking that social media is one thing I wouldn't mind a little break from, because that is probably one of the most grueling elements, especially because you often have to put a bit of a face on and be very positive, and you're not always feeling positive. So it's more challenging than it has any right to be. I would say the most rewarding thing lately I've had is I got some really good advice from Joe at the online recording studio, who was just talking to me about ways to try and build the audience. He suggested Patreon, and I found that so rewarding because it's making a direct link with people who are interested, rather than just shouting information out into the ether saying, oh, I've got a new song out, but nobody cares. Where it's Patreon, you know, they have an interest, you know, you can share something regularly, like a fortnightly newsletter. That's what I'm trying to do, and that they want to read it, and they can of course just ignore it as well. But I have found that has been really a positive feeling for me when I was slightly starting to feel a little bit disillusioned. So it's been really, really good.
Yeah, can you briefly tell me what gigs you've got coming up?
Yeah, of course. I've got some for a local music festival. They booked me for 2 separate festivals. One is on the 21st of July, and that is in the Spelthorne, Surrey area. And one is on the 27th, and that's in Richmond upon Thames. So both like Greater London, roughly. And that's going to be just me doing some acoustic music and playing some original songs and a couple of covers. I'm thinking of putting Believe by Cher in there. That's always a good one for festivals. And then on the 8th of August, I'm performing with the guitarist Dave that I mentioned before, and that is at the Ram Jam Records pub and venue in Kingston, which is a great little venue round the back of a really great pub, the Grey Horse. And there should be some other fantastic artists on there, but I don't yet have the lineup. Even so, it's a lovely venue, and they're really, really helpful.
So finally, can you tell my listeners where can I find you on your social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website, which is lizarcanesongwriter.com. But you can also just Google me or find me. It's such an unusual name. It is a made-up name for performing purposes, which I came up with when I was in my first band around the age of 16, 17. And because it stuck with me, and the first rule of branding is you don't change your branding, I found that it's a challenging one for a lot of people to pronounce. A lot of people. I heard myself called Liz Arcane on the radio the other day. But either way, it's here and it's stuck and it's here to stay. So I'm the only person with that name, Liz Arcane. And it's very much inspired by people like Stevie Nicks, who have that interest in sort of magical things. And that's where the word comes from. And I think making music is magical.
Thank you. Let me chat to you today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Ruben. I really appreciate your time.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
And you.
Goodbye.
Bye, Ruben.
Bye.